Hey there, Brian King here. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks for being you. Today I have the privilege of Jared Warner. He and I met where else? Facebook, and we started talking, and I quickly figured out that Jared is one of those guys that has a great story about taking a lot of hits but continuing to get back up. And I wanted to make sure you heard his story too. So I don't want to delay any further, and I don't want to spoil any highlights, so I will let Jared tell his own story. Jared, welcome, and thank you very much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Now, what I got from your story when we talked the other day is you pretty much started out with a bang. Things were working for you pretty smoothly right out of the gate, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I started my professional existence with three straight positive experiences, three wins, if you will, in entrepreneurship and as an employee. And, I just thought that failure was not for me. That was for other people who, weren't smart enough, didn't work hard enough, whatever it was. That wasn't my experience in my first three ventures, which I'm sure we'll get to. Things changed after those first three ventures.
So what was it about those situations? Was it just you fell into some really good karma and you found some jobs that were really a good fit for your skill set?
I don't think it was necessarily that. In the beginning, I was young and we didn't really have a plan except go 100 miles an hour, be everywhere all the time, talk to everybody, reach out to everybody, explore every single channel. That business was a automotive business out of my parents' garage, which I started with my twin brother. And, it was our passion. It was our hobby. So we didn't work 8-hour days or even 10-hour days. I mean, we worked if we were conscious, if we were awake. If I was awake, I was talking to somebody either on the phone, email. In that time, there was chat boards. There wasn't Facebook or any social media. I'm talking late 90s. So there was chat boards and all kinds of things. And so we were everywhere all the time. We were at race events. We were at the street races, which, is not legal, but that's where our customers were, and we had some enjoyment there. So we were everywhere all the time. So we had no choice but to succeed. I mean, with the amount of effort we put in, but at the same time, we didn't look at it as effort. It was our hobby. So we were doing what we loved, and we just so happened to be making money at it. And with that in mind, our competitors stood no chance against us. I mean, we were working 18-hour days essentially in communication with potential customers.
So you basically went balls to the wall to make yourself top of mind.
Yeah, but it wasn't even a conscious decision. It was a passion. And so we were talking with people who were potential customers, but we didn't look at them as potential customers. We looked at them as, car enthusiasts and race enthusiasts like we were. And so there was no sales pitch or there was no anything. So it was just like a perfect fit, and it worked really well.
So that's what people would refer to these days as the grind.
Right.
You got to keep grinding.
Right.
Or hustle.
Except it wasn't a grind for us. It was just
you loved it.
It was easy. So I parted ways with that business, even though we were successful. There was some challenges working with my brother. We had visions of going kind of different directions. And so I parted ways. I sold my part of the inventory and some stuff and moved into the corporate world, which I just cringe at the thought of that now. But at the time, this was 2001 at that point, I had run the business with my brother for about 4 years, joined the corporate world, found success there. I didn't have anything that amounted to a corporate resume, so I started very low on the totem pole. I was in data entry. I had intense computer skills. I could type that, 80, 90 words a minute. So
wow.
You can do, and I can probably type more than that now, but I don't take any of the tests. But so I got into that, and then I got promoted 6 times in 18 months. So I could play the corporate game really well, although I learned that it just wasn't for me. I liked the freedom that I had. So my next move was to go into work with the family business. So I started working with my parents. They owned a flooring store. I worked with them for about 5 years and found pretty much pure success there. And again, I attribute that success to hard work. When I had started there, other employees looked at me as boss's kid. Of course, you get a job in sales and do, all of this stuff. And so they look at it as a job that was handed to me. And I mean, I didn't have the background in it. So whereas he had one employee who had 30 years in the industry, incredibly qualified individual. So he resented me. And it was that resentment that drove me to work so much harder than him or anybody else, that I set up meetings with every sales rep that we had. I had them sell their product versus their competitor, and then likewise. So I knew the pros and cons of every single product in the entire showroom. At night, when all stores were closed, I went in and window shopped the competitors. I called them on the phone when they were open and found out pros and cons of them, what they sell, what their strengths and weaknesses were. I knew the business inside out, upside down, and quickly. And I found a lot of success there for it. Again, most people were not putting in that much time and that much hard work into it. And I was.
What I'm hearing is you tend to have a sense of wanting to master whatever it is you're doing.
Definitely.
And that is very unique out there in the world. I'm one of those folks too. I want to read it, hear it, watch it. If there's anything that I can do to make me more effective at what I'm doing, I'm all over it.
Right. I think we live in a world today of get rich quick. There's a whole new generation coming in, and I'm not anti-millennial or anything like that, but I do think that the narrative has kind of changed, and you'll see in your Facebook news feed, hey, I ran this ad campaign. I spent $70 and I made $134,576.31, or whatever. They have the ultra specific number because all the copywriting stuff, and we can get into marketing stuff. All that says to go to, select specificity. Don't say six figures, 100,000, whatever. So you're seeing that in your news feed. What they don't tell you is, I want to know about the 15 years prior to that. Talk about all the failures that led up to that. Because now I can run an ad campaign and spend a little bit of money and make a good amount of money, but it wasn't always that case. And so when you tell stories like that without the benefit of giving the backstory, you don't let people know what is actually going on. And I think we hear too much of that. And so people think, I got $70, I'm going to run that and I'm going to do the same thing. You're probably not.
Another thing I've seen a lot of marketing copy, and you hear other coaches talk about, is I will spare you all of the failures that I experienced and, start you kind of at the top. You and I both know that failure is necessary to grow you into the person that can handle a high level of success.
No doubt.
So skipping over all that stuff is not doing anybody a favor.
Right.
So I just wanted to put that out there because I see it so much.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And to that point, we can start talking, if you want, about the next three failures. We talked about some, pretty good successes. So at this point, I'm in 2008, and I had, 10, 11 years of pretty much pure success. I had a brand new BMW. I decided I wanted to move to San Diego, got a place on the beach. I had about 30 to 35,000 in savings, new BMW, place on the beach in San Diego. Things were going pretty darn well. And I had that savings, mind you, without trying to save. That was not my goal, was to save money and, not go out to eat or not go on vacations. I wasn't living that life. I wasn't consciously saving money, yet I was still saving a good amount of money because of the successes that I had in the previous years. So I get to San Diego. I'm supposed to take a job as in sales as a car salesman, which I consciously sought out. I wanted to do that because I had a friend of mine, and we would always talk about it. Like, if you like sales and you want to do in the trenches selling, what better than car sales? That's cutthroat. That sounds fun, ultra competitive. And so I wanted to try it. So I figured now's, a good time. New city, new career path. Let's go for it. Bunch of fallouts happened with that. They had total and complete miscommunication with me. They had thought that I was supposed to be there the week prior, and I'm like, I'm responsible. You told me this. Here's the email that said to show up on this date. I just got a bad feeling when I was there. There was all kinds of things. They didn't tell me I was supposed to obtain a sales license ahead of time. They didn't tell me any of this stuff. They wanted me to pay for my own background check, by the way, and that was the last straw. It wasn't the money. I think it was like $89. I had a good amount of savings, but it was just the principle. You want me to pay for a background check? I'll tell you my background is clean. If you don't believe me, it's up to you to pay for it, not me. So I got a bad feeling about that. And I was like, I've got a good amount of savings, got a place on the beach, I got a nice car. I'm going to get in the car, roll the windows down, crank the music. It's like, it was 73 degrees or something, not a cloud in the sky. I'm going to just leave and go home or, drive along the beach and hang out. And so that's what I did. I left. I quit the job before I ever started. And then I started thinking, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to hang out on the beach for a little bit. I'm not going to do much. And then an opportunity came across that was for somebody who I knew that had owned about 300 websites. He was making no money whatsoever in any of them, just a hyper creative type of guy, but he didn't have any business savvy or anything. So he couldn't monetize any of these really good ideas. At least 5 of them were very good ideas, some not so good, some terrible out of the 300, as you can imagine. So he looked at me as somebody that was successful, somebody that was making money, somebody that had drive. And he said, why don't we partner together? You can help me make money on that. He can keep doing his creative stuff. And I said, sure, why not? And the last couple of years, what I didn't tell you, the last couple of years in the flooring business, I didn't work very hard because I didn't have to. I had put all the work up front. The first, say 3 years, I worked insanely hard to the point where when I got to the last couple of years of that job, you could wake me up out of a dead sleep and ask me any question under the sun and I could answer it correctly and go back to sleep. Like I took that same level of work ethic, which was not very much. It was kind of showing up and being reactive to the environment. And I took that attitude and energy and all of that into this new venture, and I paid for it. So this was the summer of 2008. The bottom is falling out of the whole world. I didn't really know that because I'm laying on the beach getting tan. I've got, savings account and a nice place and all this stuff. And so I'm just working on my tan and making a couple calls here and there, trying to make deals, and nothing was really happening. And I just thought, well, I'm going to stop working for the day. I'm going to go out and, I went and bought a nice beach cruiser, and I'm like, I'm just going to ride my beach cruiser up the boardwalk, go get lunch. And so I didn't adjust my spending, although I had no income coming in. And I had this deal, with the guy, and I thought, I'm just going to eventually make deals, and then eventually the money's going to come in, and it's going to come in, it's going to come in. Well, it never came in. I never got anything going on that. And as the back half of 2008, we started heading towards 2009, it got even worse. People were not answering the phone. There was nothing. I mean, I'm trying to get people to spend money to advertise on a website they'd never heard of, even though they liked the idea. There was just nothing there, and there was nothing going to be there. And I ended up spending all my money. Literally, I ended up getting my car repossessed, which I had to turn it in. So it's a voluntary surrender, which is a repossess. I dropped off the car, and handed over the keys to the dealership. I was down to $3, literally $3 bills in my name. I had it in a wallet. I don't even know why I had a wallet at that point. None of the cards were good. Nothing was good. I was broke. And I had a job. I had to get a job, which for me, that was, at the time, the biggest failure I have ever come across. I thought, several times I thought to myself, I'm never going to have a job interview ever again. And that feeling to me, as somebody who's driven to be self-employed and make their own agenda, that was very important to me. And so to have a job interview and to have to get a job, that was failure at the highest level for me.
Yeah, I've been an entrepreneur for the past 10 years, and I was raised by entrepreneurs. And you and I discussed this in a different call, that is one of the things to really get you moving again.
Right.
Things are slowing down. You're feeling some loss of momentum. You're wondering why the calls aren't coming in. Then you think, man, maybe it's time I should get a job. And just that idea is so sickening for you that it gets you off your butt. And then you start asking better questions like, man, that can't happen. What do I need to do? What was I doing before that was working that I'm not doing anymore? And all of these very proactive things start coming up just because of that job question comes into play.
Terrible. Yeah. I mean, I can't stand the thought of having a job. I couldn't then. I definitely can't now. But that's what I needed to do. I had been irresponsible. I had abandoned everything that had got me to that point, which was massive action, studying everything, working harder than anybody else, and just driving. And I didn't do any of it. I mean, I don't think I could have worked any less. I could not have put any less effort into that venture. I don't think it's possible. And then I had built up so much momentum of nothingness and lack of work ethic that by the time I got to the end of it, there was no turning that momentum. I mean, there is no amount of action you can take. It's just not possible. I had built on, 6 months of nothing, of not working very hard at all. And so it's not like you can just flip a switch and all of a sudden now I've got my work ethic back. It didn't work that way.
So you were kind of down and out. You were stuck. Your resources, at least financially, were gone.
Totally gone.
You started thinking about, oh my goodness, I need to get a job. And that was a very offensive idea. Not that we're knocking jobs. My wife has a job and she loves it. She would much rather have I clock in at this time, go at that time, and the big problems are somebody else's.
Right.
I'm a totally different person than her. She sometimes thinks I'm crazy for continuing to do this. But you were at that bottom place. Not to mention you were doing it in the midst of one of the worst recessions that we've had probably in the past 100 years.
Yeah.
But my guess is at some point things began to turn around.
Not before 2 more failures. Okay, so I took that job. I ended up working with this company. I traveled on the road for 18 months. So I worked with the first company, actually, I should clarify. I worked with the first company for about 2 months, 3 months. And then I left them to work with their competitor because they kept bad-mouthing the competitor. And the company that I was working with weren't really nice guys. And so they kept bad-mouthing their competitor. And I'm thinking, the way that they're bad-mouthing the competitor, and I see the way that they conduct business and treat people, I bet you they had a conflict with their old employer because they're opposites. So if they're opposites, that's who I want to work for. So I sent them an email and said, hey, I'm working for this company and I keep hearing your name brought up. Let's have a conversation. He called me from Ireland at 3 a.m. their time and said, hey, let's talk, and he said, yeah, those guys used to work for me and here's the story and I'll fly over from Ireland and let's meet. When are you back in San Diego and stuff and away from the trip? And so they flew in from Ireland. One of the brothers of the owner of the company flew into Ireland and met me. They were great guys. And so I'm thinking, this is cool. My intuition was correct that these people are really not good people and the other people are good people. So I ended up working for that company, but it was essentially the same job. I just switched and was working with a competitor. So that was for about 18 months. And I was on the road away from my place in San Diego, which kind of sucked. I was in, in tiny little towns all over the country and in actual weather where there was real winter going on, which I wasn't used to. So I had to suffer through all that, which wasn't good. but the job kept me being able to pay my bills and was like able to start to get back on my feet. So in the middle of that job, somebody had contacted me, an old friend that had an idea. And again, he knew me from before I moved to San Diego. He knew me as somebody that was successful, could get things done, was smart, accomplished, all this stuff. And he pitched his idea to me and he said, I'd really love you to be a part of it. I'm thinking, boy, if he knew the failure I just went through, maybe he wouldn't have called me, but then again, maybe he would have. So I decided to join him in that venture. We started building this product and building this company. The company and the product was about 98% done, and I was about 100% done traveling on the road. So in the middle of a trip in Georgia, I quit. I jumped on a plane from Atlanta. I met my soon-to-be business partner, who we both lived in Southern California, but he was on a trip for his regular job. I met him in Houston, and we traveled around Texas a little bit before I flew back home to San Diego. Now, remember I said the product was 98% done?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it never got to 100% done, and I had just quit my job. Now, the reason it was 98% done, we would later find out, is because the entire program was built on bad code. So we had a couple of coders look at the program, and they said, it's amazing that it's able to actually spit out the data as closely to what you want as it is. That's remarkable. But the fact is, it will never be perfect because it wasn't done right in the first place. And all of this time has been just Band-Aid fixes to get it to this point. But you will always have errors. It will never work properly. Well, they were asking for about $5,000. So I thought, what else are they going to say, right? They're going to want to redo it themselves. They're not going to want to write a couple of lines of code, fix this thing, and let us move on. They want their $5,000. I don't have $5,000. So, we got another opinion, and they all said the same thing. And they were all in varying prices, but roughly about $5,000 to redo this whole thing. So I had quit my job, and I am now soon to be broke again. I didn't have that much of a runway. I had a little bit of a runway, but I had quit my job. So this company was costing us about $500 a month, which wasn't a ton if you have money coming in. But having quit my job, and we don't have a product to sell anymore. So now I don't have any chance at earning money on this, yet it's going to cost me at least $500 a month just to sustain this while we turn things around. Needless to say, things didn't go well. I had to close down everything. We dissolved everything and decided not to pursue it. I didn't have any money to put in my share of it, and without my involvement financially and physically, my business partner was not interested in it either. So we shut that venture down. I ended up having to move from San Diego to Oregon, where my parents had moved in the last few years, and I had to get another job. And so that's what I did. I got another job up there. It was in Southern Oregon, which the economy was not great. This was, I think, 2010. Economy wasn't great. It's never really that great in Southern Oregon anyway. It's kind of tough going to get jobs. Fortunately, I was able to get a job in like 2 days. It was a commission-only job, but I got a job. And so I've got a means to earn. At this point, I'm 30 years old. I'm living at my parents' house, which I hadn't lived at my parents' house in, a decade, but now here I am. And the job went good, met some great people. But again, I have in my core, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be self-employed. I want to wake up every day doing what I want to do, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So while I was up there, I came up with another idea for another business, which was called 555 Text. And it's a mobile marketing platform, which now you see everywhere. But this is in 2010, and People didn't know anything about it. And in Oregon, in a small town, they were so opposed to this. I struggle to even come up with the words to tell you how anti this platform they were. People now don't even really get it, and we're 7 years later and people don't get it. They definitely did not get it back then. And so I struggled to get any business going. I got very little going, and I closed that down, but not before saving money. See, this time I did not quit my job. I learned my lessons of the past, where I shut off all income sources in pursuit of another job. And you'll hear people tell you that's the only way to do it, right? You'll hear burn the ships, and
Oh, yeah.
storm the beach and all that. Maybe that'll work for you. It didn't work for me. But it also didn't work for me because the first venture, I didn't work hard enough for it to work. I had plenty of runway. I had, 30, 35 grand or something. So that's plenty of runway if you manage your money and you work hard. Like today, if I had that and was to start from ground zero, no problem. I'll make that work easily. Not then, not with the work ethic that I put in. So I ended up with a little bit of savings account. At the time, my credit was destroyed from the previous failures, so I couldn't get a car. I couldn't get a car loan, not at the rates that I wanted to pay. They were insane. So I rented a car. I'll back up a little bit. I ended up getting a job in San Diego. I flew out there, met a buddy, and I ended up, after I booked my trip, I ended up applying to a couple of jobs, and I figured I'm just going to interview while I'm down there, land a job, and figure it out from there, because my ultimate goal was to move back to San Diego. I missed the beach. I missed, daily sunshine and all that stuff. And so I got the job. I quit my other job, shut down the company that I was trying to build, and said, forget it. For now, I'm going to just pursue this job, try to get, things rolling, and then I'll regroup later. So I go back down to San Diego. This is after 3 failures. I have no credit to get a car. So I don't have a car. I have a rental car driving down to San Diego. I have no place to live. Again, no credit, not very easy to get a place to live. So I have just all my stuff that'll fit in this rental car. And I said, I got about 13 hours to figure it out. How to get a car, how to find a place to live. I got to get a bank account and get everything set up. And I'm just going to jump, take this leap. Let's go for it, man. And
dang, that's very trusting.
My parents were like, are you sure about this? I'm like, yes. Because I want this more than anything. I want to live back in San Diego, and I'm going. And so I did. And I figure I got 13 hours to make it work, speakerphone and some calls. And I found a place to stay. It was crashing on a friend's couch. I took the rental car back. I placed an ad on Craigslist and said, I've got $500 and then I'll make payment arrangements. We can do up a contract, get it notarized, whatever you want. And I ended up getting one reply to that before my post was flagged and taken down. I still don't know why that happened, but they took the post down. I made arrangements with the guy. I bought his car, and I have a car now and a couch to crash on, and I got a job, and I built it from there.
So what kept you pushing during those real downtimes? Because I remember that recession. It was really hard on me too. I almost lost my business. And if it wasn't for the help of a couple relatives, dipping into their savings to help us get over the hump, man, we would have been homeless. It was really, really bad. And what kept me going was I kept looking at my wife and kids and saying, I can't let them down. I've got to provide. And fortunately, with time and perseverance and being focused on what I wanted, things began to turn around, but it took a while. So what was it in your mind that just kept you pushing, even though you kept falling on your face?
So for me, the drive to be self-employed, and more importantly than that, it's not even just about self-employment, it's about freedom. My goal forever has been to wake up every day and do what I want to do. That's freedom. The rest of it doesn't matter. If I can wake up every day and do exactly what I want to do, work on what I want to work on, set my own agenda, that's total freedom to me. And that's more important than anything else. I could have failed 1,000 times. I don't care. I'm going to keep getting back up. If I never succeeded, I'm never going to quit. So it doesn't matter. One of us is going to win. And eventually it's going to be me. If it takes a second life, fine. But I'm not giving up in this one, and that's what I did. I just kept going. And even now, if I fail again, I'm going to pick myself up and keep going, period.
Yeah, I hear you about the time freedom. I mean, there's been days where I didn't have a lot of pressing things on my calendar, and I was feeling a little tired that day, and I made the executive choice to, hey, I'm just going to take the day off and let my brain rest, put my legs up, pet my puppies, maybe watch some mindless TV. But then the next day I'm right back to it. But that was entirely up to me.
Right.
I didn't have to answer to anybody else. Nobody was watching me punch the clock or breathing down my neck. Hey, how come this paperwork isn't turned in? And once you've tasted that as an entrepreneur, that kind of freedom, it's really, really hard to give it up.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I can say now, today, after all that, now I am self-employed, and I woke up this morning at 2 a.m. I was excited about what I was working on, and I just decided I'm going to get up and start working on it because I like what I'm doing.
So what are you doing now? Where's your focus?
So now I own a marketing company, and that's called 123 Get Found, and I'm starting a group. That's what got me up and excited. The group is called Agency in Your Pocket. And I started my marketing agency because I like to help people. I've always liked marketing. I've studied it forever. I started learning about marketing in the late 90s when my brother and I started that business. And so that's my passion. That's what I study all the time. And I started that business to help people's businesses grow. I figure I learned so much about failure, and then I've learned so much about successes that I want to do this. But with my marketing business, I'm limited on the amount of people I can help. I can't take on thousands of clients and not do it effectively. So I'm starting a group, and that's what's got me passionate about it, is where I can help people in a group format. I can teach people, review their marketing campaigns, point them in the right direction, and just give them powerful advice, stuff that's working. And so I'm going to give them trainings and case studies on stuff from our agency that we're doing, and people can learn from that.
Beautiful. I've started doing something similar with my clients because I find that the group dynamic creates this synergy that you wouldn't find any other way.
Right.
And they're getting so much more value out of it. It's totally awesome. Now, you have a website, though, that's all about your journey of overcoming failure, and you're wanting to pay that forward, right?
Definitely. Yeah. So the podcast is Fighting Failure, and it's fightingfailure.com. And so that is brought about because of my journey, and I want to help other people overcome the fear of failure, because I don't really have the fear of failure, at least not very much. Sometimes it enters in, but I just dive in and go for it. But I don't feel enough people have that. I think a lot of people are just paralyzed by the fear of failure, and so they don't take action. So I tell my story in the first 3 episodes, and then we turn it over to guests, and we talk about their story. I share some of my experiences through that. And what I want people to take away from it is I interview people that are successful, but they've gone through massive struggles and massive failures, and they talk about that. And so that's what made them who they are today. And I don't think enough of that is highlighted, as we were talking about earlier with all those Facebook ads that are coming through where, people have this instant windfall success. That's not reality.
That's marketing.
That's marketing. That they probably did have that success. So that little headline that you read is probably true, but what they don't tell you is all the other stuff before it. So I like to tell all that story. Let's talk about what you went through, what it took to get over it, and where you're at now. Not just where you're at now.
Yeah, people, they look at the ones that are successful and say, oh, easy for them, or you probably knew somebody and got hooked up with the right kind of job. And they create this nonsensical story of ease.
Right.
There's a piece of cake for that other person. But, another thing you and I talked about as far as failure goes is failure and success are not two separate roads.
Right.
It's all one process. And when you fail, you're tripping over something on the same road. You're falling into a pothole or a sinkhole on the same road, but you get back out of it and then you continue on the road. It's not something you can avoid and expect to grow along the journey.
Definitely. I've learned more from my failures than I have from my successes. Your successes, eventually, if you have enough of them back to back without failure, at least was my experience, you don't value those successes anyway. You just start to believe your own hype. You start to believe all of that, or at least that's been my experience. I had pure success for the first, 10 to 12 years of my professional existence. And I thought, that's just me, man. I'm just that good. And life has a way of humbling you and going, no, you're not. Not without working really hard for it. You go, okay, thanks, life.
And it sounds like once you've been humbled, you are more likely to create a life that's of service.
Definitely.
Because that was one shift I heard in your story, that you began much more other focused on the other side of all those failures. And now you want to help people.
Definitely. Yeah. And the other thing I'll say is that if somebody's considering starting a job or starting their own company, their own venture, don't make it centered around money. Because what I didn't mention was those failures all revolved around money. So I viewed the company as a financial transaction. In other words, I looked at every one of those ventures as, if I can sell X amount of this, I make this much. Okay, well, how would I double it? How would I triple it? What if I times it by 4? What, can we raise the prices? Can we do this? How can I, and so the whole internal dialogue about those businesses revolved around money. So the entire thing was all money motivated. And as a result of that, they failed. And now in my businesses, I don't care about the money. I could care less. It's all about making sure people get value. How can I provide value? Am I providing value? If somebody reads this, watches this video, pops on this webinar, has a call with me, any of that stuff, are they getting value out of it? And that's important. And so, and not only are they getting value, what are people going to learn from this? If I'm going to take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour out of their time, what is the trade-off? What do they get out of it? And that's really, really important to me. And it's for that reason that, I am seeing success today.
That is so beautiful, Jared. I'm glad that that's how our conversation came to an end. Beautiful, beautiful discussion. Remind the folks where they can find you online.
Yeah, fightingfailure.com. That's going to link to the podcast. It's on iTunes. You can search Fighting Failure, and you can listen on the website as well.
Thank you again, Jared, for being on the show. I really appreciate it. This has been a fantastic conversation. I know the folks listening to it are going to really benefit and find a lot of value. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
And everybody, thank you again for tuning in. And most importantly, thanks for being you.